Okay, the supplies we are using for this project is Hobby Lobby Yarn Bee, number 4, Soft Secret in white. And from Yarn Bee also, For the Moment in cream. Now, this yarn has a little bit of a sheen, which of course makes the finished product just that much more special. So I really suggest using the same yarn. And we will be needing measuring tape, scissors, a tapestry needle, and a size I or a 5.5 millimeter hook. We are going to start with a chain of 70. Now, if you need instruction on the beginning stitches, I will go ahead and leave a little white box up above that will take you to the beginner tutorials, where you will learn how to do the chain stitch, single crochet, double crochet, half double. Now we will start by entering a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So there's the first one, it's a little tiny there. And then there's the second one, so enter a single crochet. And then we will chain 1. Then we will skip the next chain and enter another single crochet in the next chain. Chain 1 again, and that's the pattern across the row. Skip 1, single crochet in the next, chain 1, skip the next, single crochet in the next, chain 1, and continue across. Okay, when you get to the last 2 chains, you would have entered your single, your chain 1. Now you will skip the next, and you will enter the single in the last chain. Now chain 1 and turn. And this is known as the linen stitch. Okay, now what I like to recommend with all of my videos is that you watch the entire video all the way through before you start. Because sometimes I will add some tips and suggestions along the way that might have helped you towards the beginning, so make sure you watch the entire video first. Okay, now, also this is for a size small. It will fit in extra small to small, and I will have instructions for additional sizes in the description area below. So make sure you click where it says see more, or there might be right next to the name of the channel, Crazy Cool Crochet. You will be able to click there. It will open up the white space below, and I'll have a lot more information in there. And also this will be available at crazycoolcrochet.com, the written instructions. And of course at my Etsy shop, which is called Crazy Cool Crochet US, as in United States, .etsy.com. Okay, so let's continue here. So you chained 1 and turned. Now we are going to continue with the same pattern. We're going to start by entering the first single crochet in the space, the first space. And then chain 1. And then continue across, entering the single crochets in the spaces, the chain 1 spaces from the previous row. Continue all the way across. When you get to the end of that second row, you would have done that last chain there. You will enter single crochet into that last space, chain 1, and then enter a single crochet into the turning chain at the very end. Chain 1, turn, and repeat. You will be entering that first single crochet into that first chain 1 space below. Chain 1 and continue across as you have been, entering into these spaces, the chain 1 spaces below. And repeat this until we get to the neckline shaping. And my apologies, I believe I did not make it clear at the very beginning, which is why I say watch the entire video first. We are working with 69 stitches, and that includes the chains. For each row, we are going to be working 69 stitches. Okay, you would have continued in the pattern for 66 rows total. And then when we get to the neckline, we'll continue. All right, when we are done with that last row, we will chain 1 and turn. And now we are going to work on the neck shaping. So what we will do first, and now make sure you're on the right side, check for that starting tail at the bottom. Okay, so right side facing, we will enter, using the same stitch, the single crochet and the chain. We're going to do 20 stitches. Now we are going to slip stitch into the next space. Chain 1, turn. Now we are going to continue in the pattern, but skip that space there where you had the slip stitch. Skip that, enter into the first actual space with a single crochet, chain 1, continue in the pattern. And then the single in that turning chain, chain 1. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 stitches. Turn. Continue again with that pattern, starting in the first space. You should be at 18 stitches. Slip stitch into that last slip stitch below. Chain 1 and turn. Now here again, we will enter into the first actual space, not into that slip stitch. The single crochet. You will be at 17. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. And then turn. Now we are on row 5 of the next shaping. Continue. So now you're at 16. When you get to the end, slip stitch in that slip stitch below, but do not chain, just turn. Okay, now you will slip stitch into the slip stitch below. And now continue, enter your single and chain. And now you will be at 15, chain 1, turn, and that's where you will stay. With the 15 stitches, let's do that next row. So you can see how to end. Okay, you will enter the 15th stitch into that slip stitch below. Chain 1, turn, and now you will enter your single into the first space so that you end up with the 15 stitches. So we are going to finish off this shoulder at 15 stitches. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. Okay, so now just continue with the 15 stitches until you complete 13 rows. This way. Okay, now we've completed that first neck shaping and shoulder strap, and we ended at 15 rows. Now I do want to mention that if you need a longer strap, feel free to continue with the rows beyond the 15 as much as you need. Especially if you have a larger bust, you will probably need a longer strap. Now, I want to mention that I want you to keep in mind, crochet is an art, not a science. So, the reason I'm saying this is because for the second side, we are not going to copy or mimic the first side exactly. Okay, we're going to need to make some tweaks here and there in order to keep the stitch count the same as the first side. Now, as we are doing this, I also want you to keep in mind, if you think that the shaping doesn't look perfectly even, don't worry about it, because we are coming back with a little trim at the end. So any little bumps or whatever, it's all going to be covered up. It's going to be beautiful, trust me, okay? So now we are going to start the next side. And to do that, we are going to skip 12 of the chain 1 spaces. Okay, so where you entered that last, or where you entered the first, the last, I am so sorry. Okay, so where you entered that last stitch in the first row of the shoulder shaping, the next space, empty space, you're going to count as number 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Chain 1 spaces. Attach your yarn in the next space. Okay, so skip 12, attach the yarn in the next chain 1 space, insert the hook, leave a tail, pull the yarn through, chain 1 to secure it, and then start with a single crochet in the next space and continue with the pattern. Chain 1. I like to keep the tail along the row to incorporate it into the stitches to hide it. If you prefer to leave it hanging out and then go back at the end and weave it in, you can do that too, whatever you prefer. At the end of that first row, you should have 21 stitches. Chain 1 and turn. Then we will continue in the pattern. So insert the first single crochet in the first space, chain 1, continue. And you'll enter the last single crochet into the last full space here, and that'll be number 19. And chain 1 and turn. Now, that first chain is going to count as your first stitch for this third row here. And then we will start the single crochet in the next space. So not that very first space, but the next one. And then all the way across with the pattern. So the last single crochet is going to count as number 18. Because that turning chain we counted as the first stitch. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Then chain 1 and turn. Continue in the pattern. And then the last single crochet will go into the slip stitch below, or that last space. And that'll be number 17 for row 4. And we are going to chain 1 and turn. And again, that first stitch will count as your first counted stitch. And then start your single crochet, not in that first space, but the next one. Continue in the pattern. So now counting that first chain as your first stitch, continue in the pattern, you end up with 16 stitches on row 5. So chain 1 and turn, continue in the pattern, and now again your last single crochet will go into that last little space, and that'll be number 15 for row 6. And that is the stitch count that we will stay on for the remainder of the rows. Okay, so you chain 1 and turn. And now you will single into that first space. And continue in the pattern. For 15 stitches. And then you will continue until you complete 15 rows of the shoulder neck shaping. And again, if you need longer straps, feel free to go as long as you need. Also, don't forget, you're going to need 2 panels. Okay, 2 identical panels. So make another one. And then the front and the back will both have the scoop neck. Okay, this is going to be so pretty. Okay, now we are ready to attach the 2 panels at the shoulders, and we are using the yarn needle with a length of yarn, and we're just going to use a simple whip stitch. So just insert the needle under the 2-strand chain at the top, match it up with the second panel, and if you've got a tail from the previous work, I like to tie it to secure it. nice and tight. Okay, now get those tails out of the way and continue. So just keep going under the 2 strands. Yeah, those tails can be pesky. Okay. Just continue across and then repeat on the other side. Okay, now we are going to start working on the sleeves. And you want the work right side facing up, and use your measuring tape. Go to the shoulder where you joined the 2 panels, and we are going to measure 6.5 inches from where you joined the panels, and that's where we will insert the yarn. Now, again, this is for a size small, extra small, small. So if you need a larger arm opening for the larger sizes, well then scoot your hook further down. I would go about 1 inch lower for each size larger. Okay, but for me, the 6.5, 6 3/4 works fine. So that's where you want to insert the yarn. Leave a tail. Pull the yarn through. Do a chain to secure it. Now in the very next space, almost in the same space, but right next to it, go ahead and do your first single crochet and chain 1. Now we are going to stay with the same single crochet chain 1 pattern for the sleeves. And you want to work, again, this is for the size small, 60 stitches down the row, evenly spaced. So what you'll be doing is essentially skipping a little space and then entering the hook in the next available space. And then chain 1. Now I like to incorporate the tail along the row that I'm working to hide it. If you prefer, you can just leave it hanging out and then you can weave it in at the end. Now we will continue, as I said, evenly spaced. When you get to the end, chain 1, turn, and we will continue in the pattern as we did for the body. You'll enter your first chain, or the first single crochet into the first space, chain 1, and continue. You should end up with 59 stitches. All right, we're going to enter 58, chain 1, and then 59 in that starting chain. Chain 1 and turn, and then continue in the pattern until you complete 17 rows of 59 stitches. And then we will start working on decreasing so that we can taper the arm, the sleeve. Okay, we completed 17 rows. We did our chain 1 and turned. Now on row 18, we will do our first decrease, and we will be decreasing 1 stitch on each side. So now we will enter the hook in the first space, and we'll start the single for 2 loops on the hook. Now this is where we're going to deviate a little bit from what we've been doing as far as where we enter the hook. So we will enter now inside of that single crochet below, inside that little V. And then we'll pull the yarn through for 3 loops on the hook. Now we will pull the yarn through all 3 loops, and that is a single crochet decrease. So now what we've done is taken 2 stitches and combined them into 1. So that counts as 1. Chain 1, and now we will enter the next single crochet right into the very next space. Chain 1, and then continue in the pattern across until we get to the last 2 spaces, and then we will decrease again. Okay, now we are at 56. So now to get to 57, we will enter the hook in that last space, pull through 2 loops on the hook. Now we will enter again into the turning chain as we normally would have. Pull through 3 loops on the hook, pull through all 3. Now we've created another decrease. This will be number 57. And we will chain 1 and turn, and we'll continue in the pattern with the 57 stitches. Okay, enter into the first space, your first single crochet, and continue in the pattern across. Okay, at the end of that row, we will enter number 56 in the last space. That's 56 with the chain, and then 57 goes into the turning chain as usual. Chain 1, turn, and continue in the pattern for the 57 stitches until you get to row 33. Row 33, we will decrease again on each side the same way so that you get to 55 stitches. Now you might want to write this down, and I will try to remember to add this to the description below, the detail. Otherwise, you can go to crazycoolcrochet.com for the written pattern. Or if you prefer the printed pattern, it will be available at Etsy. And all the links will be down below. Now, as I said, row 33 will be a decreased row for 55 stitches. And again, and then you will continue on the 55 stitches until you get to row 39. That will be another decreased row. You will end up with 53 stitches. Then row 43 will be another decreased row. You will end up at 51 stitches. Row 47, another decreased row for 49 stitches. Row 49, decrease again for 47 stitches. Row 51, decrease again for 45 stitches. And then at that point, we'll continue and finish off the sleeve. But for now, go ahead and get yourself to that 51st row for the 45 stitches. Okay, now to finish off the sleeve, we are going to work rows 51 through 70 at 45 stitches. Then we're going to do some more decreases here to really taper it nicely. So on 71, row 71, you will decrease again, and you'll end up at 43 stitches. Then row 75, you'll decrease again to 41 stitches. Row 77, decrease again to 39 stitches, and then the last row is row 78 at 39 stitches. So you will have 78 rows for the sleeve. Now we're coming to the finish line. It's getting exciting. So then what you will do when you're done with the sleeves, you will turn the garment right side out. Excuse me while I situate this so that you have right sides together. Okay, once you have your panels with the right sides together, wrong side up, you are going to use your tapestry needle again with the length of yarn, and I usually start at the bottom, along the side, along the bottom, and just like you did for the shoulders, you are going to use your whip stitch and sew all the way up, or seam it, I should say. Okay, so all the way up the edge, up to the underarm. Make sure that you get the little corner of the underarm situated so they match up, and then continue seaming all the way down the sleeve. And then cut off the yarn. So the only border we're going to use here is the fur yarn. So we don't need any kind of ribbing, just the fur. Like I said, no ribbing, just the fur yarn. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to do the fur trim on the neck. Okay, so once again, hang on while I situate this, because for the trim, we want the garment to be right side facing you. And of course you'll go in and, get rid of all of these little stragglers, put them over to the wrong side. So I usually like to start in the middle, but I'm just realizing now, since we've got the scoop neck going to the front and the back, that might not be such a good idea. So this time, I'm going to start at the shoulder seam. Okay, so just attach the yarn as you normally would, insert the hook, leave a tail, let me turn this around for you. Okay, so insert the hook as you normally would, pull the yarn through, chain one to secure it, and now insert the hook in every other space with a single crochet. So you're going to be working single crochets around the neck. And you will not be able to see your stitches, but it's very intuitive. You can feel exactly where the yarn is and where the hook will be going. Okay, so skip a space, insert the hook, pull through for a single, grab the yarn, pull it right through. Keep a nice loose tension here because we're not doing a chain in between. So you're going to need a nice loose tension. And then just go all the way around. And when you get to the end, you can do a slip stitch and cut it off. Okay, I'm back where I started. I entered my last single crochet. Now I'm going to insert the hook, try to find that first stitch and slip stitch. So just grab the yarn and pull it right through that last loop on the hook. I like to do one more chain to secure, and then cut it off. Pull it through to knot it. Okay, this tail is a little too long. So you can go ahead and weave it through a couple of stitches if you can, and cut the rest of it off. And there's your cute little neckline with the fur. Okay, again, I gotta make sure I get rid of those stragglers. Now, if you find that the neck is a little too low, as you are working the fur, you can actually skip 2 spaces instead of 1, and that will tighten it up a little bit. Okay, but you will use the same method then around the wrists and around the bottom. And that will be it. Then you will be done. And don't forget, I'm going to also have a matching scarf and hat that will also be trimmed with the fur. It's all going to look just gorgeous when we're done.